Hi, thank you for tuning in. I am sort of making a follow up video to my last one where I talked about the journey of life, I guess you could say, following a path. You have a carrot that you're after, destination. Sometimes you come to this realization that you don't need to be chasing the carrot, or there is no carrot. You just have to be. It's not like you have to be. You just realize that you just are where you are, and you're okay with that, and you find appreciation in that. And then what happens sometimes is this third third way can kind of take over too, where you're stuck in between. You're not chasing the carrot anymore, but you're also sort of rejecting what is. You're rejecting the present. So you're in limbo. And what I'm noticing with myself is this tendency to go back into limbo. And it seems like I kind of go in and out of maybe all three, but let me unpack this a little bit more. So, the carrot analogy, it's not just about having a goal, working towards that goal, and trying to achieve it. That's like an overly simplistic way to look at that. The carrot analogy is really this sense that there's always something further that you have to get towards. There's always that happiness is always far away, that contentment is always far away, and you can never be truly content until you have X, Y, and Z, or if you just meet a certain expectation or meet some kind of standard. It's much deeper or bigger than just having like an identifiable goal. It's kind of an existential thing that you feel like you need to have. And most of us are operating on this kind of level, whether we realize it or not. I think a lot of us do realize it, and we just think it's normal, or we just think it's the only valid way to do things. And why it's different from just like a goal is we project kind of all of our hopes and dreams and wishes onto it. We think it's going to solve all of our problems, whatever that thing is, whatever that carrot is. You know, the Philosopher's Stone, the Holy Grail, Ithaca, whatever. Some of us, we might say it's the perfect career or it's the perfect partner. It's the perfect identity. It's enlightenment. It's the perfect teacher. It's the perfect healing modality. You know, we'll find something that sounds like a goal, but really isn't a goal. It's just it becomes the receptacle for all of our wish fulfillment. So in that sense, it's very similar to the medieval philosopher's stone or the Holy Grail. And we might hope that we're going to get to that. It's a driving force. It pulls us. But at the same time, I think there's always some part of us that knows we're never going to actually get there. Not fully, not completely, not in the way that we think. Some part of us knows that. And we either drown that voice out and ignore it, or we fight with it, or maybe sometimes we accept that that voice is there, and but then we don't see any other viable options, so we just think, okay, well, what else is there to do with my life? So I think a lot of us operate from that level. And for me, my Holy Grail, well, I guess for me, it hasn't only been one thing. It kind of alternates. Lately, more often than not, it's been more about enlightenment. That if I reach enlightenment, that'll be it. That'll be everything that I need. Sometimes for me, it's finding my soulmate. And that's been a pretty strong theme throughout my life, wanting to find my soulmate. Feeling like that's going to solve all of my problems. And I'm talking about feelings like, deep-seated things that we can think about this stuff and rationally understand that's not going to solve all of my problems, but it doesn't generally change the underlying feeling. So yeah, wanting a soulmate. And then sometimes it's wanting the perfect career, wanting to be a fully independent business owner, doing what I love, making the kind of money I want to make. And the thing is that all of these things, how do I say this? They in a way can be goals. It's not like in and of themselves these things are not possible. Even enlightenment, and in my last video I broke that down a bit more, that enlightenment tends to be a very catch-all term for all of our projections of wish fulfillment. But that's not what enlightenment actually is. And the word carries so much baggage with it, but it's just, I can't personally speak for what it is, because, that would be like me talking about how to perform heart surgery when I'm not a heart surgeon. That'd be kind of silly, but yeah, watch my last video if you want more of a breakdown on that. But point I was trying to make is that none of these things on its own is inherently not possible. It's just that because we project all these things onto it, it just turns it into something mythic, legendary, epic. It ceases to be reality. It becomes archetypal. It becomes unreachable. It becomes an impossible ideal. We put too much pressure on ourselves to get there, and we put too much pressure on the thing itself to solve all of our problems. So, like with a partner, for example, or soulmate, and that gets easily mythologized into this idea of the twin flame, which I think is bullshit. Yeah, maybe that's another video, because I could go into that a lot, but I don't want to do that right now. So, yeah, the twin flame, your exact other half, who's literally half of your soul. At least that's the way they conceptualize it. And that when you meet this person, it's going to change everything in your life. It's going to accelerate your spiritual growth. It's going to accelerate your healing. It's going to bring up all of your shadows so that you can heal. Even if it's difficult, it will be enlightening. It's going to change your whole life. And there is some truth to that, I think, but it just takes on these mythic proportions. And so I've been single for about 11 years now, and had a really intense relationship prior to that I felt was a soulmate relationship. And in some ways, I'm still kind of on the fence. I think maybe it was, but not in the sense of a twin flame, but in a sense of feeling that we both had the same core intention in this life, and maybe similar wounds, not the same wounds, but also another video. I'm going to put that to the side right now. That's a lot. There's a lot there. So, yeah, intense relationship, fell in love very quickly, and was devastated when it ended. And I had this ideal of just the perfect partner after that, and well, probably before that too. And there were some opportunities in the intervening years of having relationships, and I just always turned those away. And there were a couple times that I did have feelings again for someone, and it just didn't work out. And that would kind of devastate me and make me feel like there's no chance I'm going to meet the right person again, So, yeah, I was creating a very strong ideal around what a partnership was supposed to look like, and it wasn't meeting my reality. So again, that's not to say that there's not, that I shouldn't have an idea of what I want, and clarify what's most important to me in a relationship, and strive to meet someone who shares my values, or at least we have enough of those values in common to be kind of on the same wavelength. And yeah, obviously someone who treats me well and kind of has their shit together, you know. So it doesn't mean that I shouldn't have like a set of standards, um, but even more fundamentally than that, than the person itself, is just the importance I was putting on having a partnership. I was mythologizing just the idea of a partnership as this incredibly soul evolving spiritual experience that is just like magic. Um, Maybe taking little grains of truth, you know, from things I would see and hear, and just weaving them together and exaggerating them, just creating just this mythic image. So that's not something that is reachable. It's always going to be on a pedestal in the distance. And yeah, kind of same with career. Hoping that I would find the perfect thing where I would just excel at something and be just naturally gifted. Um, that if I found the right thing, there would just be this flow in life. It would just all come together, and specifically around business, you know, creating my own business. But if I found the right kind of thing to do, it would just all come together. I'd have the right customers or clients just come to me, the right resources, money, all that stuff, and I would just be flying and just doing what I love. Um, it would just be coming together easily. And yeah, it wasn't meeting reality. Um, and I think there were a lot of things in the New Age community that reinforced this kind of um, disconnected idealism, and just things like the law of attraction, at least the way that it was being pitched, I think were it kind of created this unhealthy sort of an unhealthy relationship with desire that was actually pretty immature. You know, there's an immature version of desire, and then there's a mature version, I think. And the immature version does tend to put things on pedestals and exaggerate and embellish and blow things out of proportion. In the mature standpoint, um, and actually, before I even get to that, the immature standpoint can also do the exact opposite. It can exaggerate the negative things or be overly fearful, or it tends to be black and white. It's like all or nothing. It's like it's either perfect and amazing, or I don't want it at all, you know? Um, the mature standpoint, I think, is more balanced, and it both sees and accepts challenge, and at the same time, it also is trusting in oneself and in life, and you could say the universe. And I think that's the gold that can be found, the truth that can be found in these ideas of law of attraction. It's not so much about just having a desire, just something that you think that you want, and focusing on it, feeling the emotion, visualizing, manifesting it, letting it go, and just letting it happen, um, I just think that's simplistic. I think I think a better approach to that is to first better understand your desires, to clarify them, clarify where they come from, and build a healthy relationship with it. To not expect your desire to solve all of your problems, to not exaggerate what you think it's going to do. And that requires being just real and honest with yourself. And that's a step that's usually skipped over when it comes to that kind of stuff. So, but I think the thing that is healthy is to lean into this trust, this openness. That sort of goes with this idea that everything happens for a reason. And I think another way to put it too is even if challenge happens, it can still be to our benefit. Or what Nietzsche said, what doesn't kill us makes us stronger, which is a cliche, but it's usually one of those cliches that doesn't hit for most of us. We hear it, but it doesn't land, and so that's how it becomes a cliche. I mean, that's not how it becomes a cliche, but that's why we think it's cute and nice, but then kind of just move on. It's because it's not hitting, it's not landing anywhere. We don't actually believe it. We just think it's a nice saying. But these are kind of two different ways of essentially pointing to the same truth, I think. Everything happens for a reason. What doesn't kill us makes us stronger. They're pointing to having this trust in ourselves and a trust in life, and to just be open to acknowledge that difficult things do happen, and that's not inherently bad. It can be a childish view to try to just eliminate all discomfort and just dwell in this state of perpetual bliss. I think that's a childish view, and it's like in the Odyssey, how Odysseus and his companions get stuck in the realm of the Lotus Eaters, who are just constantly just high, basically, just lounging around in this really just relaxing, soothing place, and getting high all the time. And they finally realize, like, oh, well, yeah, we have to move on. We have to keep going. We have to continue our journey of life. I'm also thinking of Brave New World, how they kind of do the same thing. They take soma all the time to just feel happy all the time. But it's I mean, it brings up a good question of, well, if you did have the ability to just do something to be happy all the time, whether it is find the right spiritual practice or take a drug, why not do that? It's a good question. It's a very relevant question to today. I mean, it always has been relevant, but I think it's increasingly so. And for me, what's coming up around that is it's if you are holding on to this idea of a perpetual happiness or comfort, it automatically positions you in opposition to discomfort and pain. And that means you are in opposition to reality, because reality is not just perpetual joy all the time. It's in our experience of reality, in our experience of what's going on here, there's variety and there's change. And nothing is inherently good or bad, but there is variety and change. And that means if we try to hold on to anything, it's just not going to be possible. Even if there's a drug that we take to make us happy all the time, somehow that's going to put us in opposition to reality. And that's going to come back to bite us in some way, shape, or form. So I think that's true for any of these pursuits towards an idealized image of the thing, the carrot, the wish fulfillment. As long as it's divorced from reality, it's going to put us into opposition with reality, as long as we're pursuing it. And that brings us to what happens if we start to realize that. And then we just kind of look around and we just see that, okay, well, I'm here. That carrot is a mirage. I can kind of see that now. Well, what do I do now? And that can be where we can get stuck. That can be where we can get stuck. Jean-Paul Sartre talks about this in Nausea, and there's this one scene where the protagonist is talking with his friend about how they both reached a point where there are no longer any special moments. And they're kind of in a way in limbo. It's like they no longer have I mean, this isn't a complete equivalency to what I'm talking about, but I think the heart of it still speaks to what I'm saying, that there's something that these characters no longer feel that ordinary people seem to feel. And it's not just like this, it's not just like depression, it's much deeper than that. It's the things that they used to think were important just aren't important anymore. And they're trying to still go through the motions of life, doing their things. The protagonist is still working on his project, his writing project, research. But things are different. There are no special moments anymore. And they are left feeling kind of devoid. Like, what now? What do I do? I only bring that up because I think it's a good deep dive into this limbo state. It's a really good book about that. And it does have a hint of resolution at the end too, I think. More than a hint. I think the book gets a bad reputation, but I think it's kind of misunderstood. I don't think it's truly a depressing book. I think it's just a realistic, I think it's just an honest book. And I don't think at all it ends in a defeatist kind of mindset. I think it ends in an opening. So yeah, I would just recommend reading that. So we get stuck in this limbo sometimes if we just see through the carrot. We see it for the mirage that it is. And it doesn't necessarily happen all at once. It can be kind of gradual, where more and more it just kind of sinks in for us that maybe that carrot isn't actually real. Or maybe it's a lot smaller than I thought it was. Or maybe it's actually not even a carrot. It just kind of sinks in more and more sometimes. And then we have kind of less zest in pursuing it. But that can be a messy process too. Because then we'll convince ourselves again, like, wait, no. There really is a carrot. Okay, come on. Get it together. Let's go for it. Like for me, I would have these moments where I would feel like I would see through it and just not care so much. And then I would feel depressed. And I just feel like, kind of, what's the point? The deeper you get into that, it just kind of forces you to think about it's hard to stay in that state. And so for me, what the mind naturally does at a certain point when I'm in that state is, well, it tries to come up with solutions. And on the one extreme, content warning, it'll come up with thoughts of suicide. What's the point? I'll just, I'll die. I'll just, why not? Um, and then on the other side of it, which is in a way trying to kind of pull out of that and just keep things going in a certain way, it'll have that draw towards coping mechanisms that cater to base instincts and hedonism. I'll go hook up with someone and get laid. I'll play video games. I'll order out or go to a restaurant and just eat some really good food. And those things can just keep, you're not really going anywhere, but you're alive still, you know. Something's happening, but you're not going anywhere. And that's still being in limbo. But sometimes you kind of need to do that to pull yourself out of an even darker place. And I really don't even want to say like, oh, that's dark and then this is dark too. Like having thoughts of wanting to die, I think actually a lot of us have those thoughts at certain times of our lives. I actually don't think it's that abnormal. Some of us fixate on it more, but when you really, when you've had difficult experiences in life, and or when you've really just taken a hard look at some things about life, I think it makes sense that sometimes those thoughts come up. So it's not really dark, it's just, it's a response to difficult situations. And in some cases, having the thing that you thought you were going towards, having that kind of get cut off. And ultimately, it's not really about wanting to die. It's about wanting something to stop. But sometimes we think death is the only way for that to happen. But it's really just about wanting something to stop. It might even be in some cases about wanting some part of us to die. Not necessarily the whole thing, but some part of us. And that can kind of snowball if we fixate on it too much into wanting all of me to die. But if we're honest with ourselves, I don't think I don't think that's what we really want when we have those thoughts. So that feeling is just trying to tell us something, and then the narrative says, I want to die. But in reality, it's pointing to something else. And we just have to just kind of step back a little bit, take a broader view. And then the hedonism, it's not bad in and of itself. It's not bad to want to have sex, eat good food, play video games. And when you're feeling stuck, and in a way you're just trying to keep going, then in that case it can be kind of useful. But again, it doesn't really go anywhere. It's just you're spinning your wheels, you know. It's hard to stay in that place a long time. People can do it, but it's hard. And it does take its toll after a while. And there's usually something in us that comes up at some point that says, I should be doing more. And I think this is true for everyone. And I just want to add that I think for men, that stings a little bit more. Possibly. Because we have this expectation that we need to be strong, we need to be active and getting at something and succeeding. And that makes it hurt a bit more when we're seeing ourselves not do that. And it creates more shame. And then I think too, for a lot of us, and I think too, for a lot of us, there is still a genuine energy that wants to come through. But when we're stuck in not knowing how it's supposed to come through and then resisting that, it kind of bottles that energy up. And that's also why I think some of these coping mechanisms can happen, because they're also sort of an outlet for the energy to go somewhere. Like playing video games, it feels good for a lot of us because we're accomplishing something. It's not in real life, but it's in somewhere. Like for me, it felt really good to build my character up, level him up a lot, build his strengths and abilities, and feel like I'm kicking ass and doing something. And I don't feel like I'm doing it in real life, but I feel like I'm doing it in a video game. So it hits something in the brain, or it just hits something within us that we're still doing something. And hooking up, it gave an outlet for my energy, you know, even though I felt like kind of useless, still it's getting out there somewhere. And I think for a lot of guys, porn addiction can be that too, or excessive masturbation, you know. I'm only saying excessive because it if it's used as a coping mechanism in this way that I'm talking about. So yeah, those are things that can happen too. But essentially what this comes down to is we just kind of find ways to just keep coping with this limbo state that we're in, because the carrot has dropped away in some kind of sense. It's dropped away, and we don't know what to do at that point. So yeah, and what I'm noticing with myself is that there is still this difficulty of if I'm feeling depleted, man, I'm like working this out more in real time here, so please bear with me. If I'm feeling depleted and I'm feeling useless, it kind of reinforces itself. And then I'll go back to those coping mechanisms to deal with that. But I think what's kicking in that kind of scenario is still that back and forth with wanting the carrot to be there, yet also recognizing more and more that it's not really a thing. It's not what I think it is, but I still want it to be there. I'm still projecting. So it's like in that case, I'm holding on to something. And when I feel like I can't hold on to that, I find something else to hold on to that's more accessible. That's what a coping mechanism is. It's something that we hold on to that's accessible, that's easily available, to give us a quick hit of dopamine. Or to quickly meet some kind of need. It's instant gratification. It's not it's not anything more than that, really. Because it's like, I mean, the thing is, like, there's nothing wrong with sex. There's nothing wrong with having a good meal. There's nothing wrong with playing video games. It's just the way we do that it's our relationship with those things that changes what it does for us. Because in a way, if the carrot falls away, oftentimes it can feel like there's a hole. And then we try to fill the hole up. But the hole can never actually be filled. Doesn't matter what we put into it, or it doesn't matter how we try to cover it up, it can never be filled. And That's just the way it is. We don't usually even explore what that feeling actually is. It feels like a hole, but what is that really? Instead of making friends with it, we see it kind of as an enemy. We see it as something that we have to run from or overcome. But nothing we can do fixes it. None of the coping mechanisms that we know fixes it. It's just temporary relief. We had hoped that the carrot would fill the hole. In a way, the carrot was a coping mechanism too. Kind of a cleverly designed one, and often one that clothes itself in things that are socially acceptable. Because when we're in limbo, sometimes there can be less care for social norms and standards and whatnot, and so we'll do things that are maybe more taboo. Sometimes, oftentimes, like the carrot feels like something that is socially reinforced. But it's still a coping mechanism. One that we never actually reach. So it's just like just having something that we're always reaching for is the coping to avoid the hole. Yeah, so it's not so much that if we cut that off, it creates a hole. It's more so that the hole, whatever that actually is, that's just how it feels like at first. Let's just be, I guess, agnostic about it. But that feeling wasn't just created by the absence of the thing in the distance. It's more so the thing in the distance was a coping mechanism to avoid the feeling. And so this third option appears of what happens if I stop chasing and I stop avoiding. What happens if I'm just here with what's happening right now? And that doesn't mean giving up goals, like concrete goals. Because again, a goal, like an actual goal that we clarify, it's not something on a pedestal. It's an inspiration or a vision, and it demands of us that we take steps. You know, you could say steps towards it, but when it's an authentic goal, I think what happens over time is that we eventually realize that the steps and the process of trying to reach it is itself part of the goal. It's not a separate thing from this ideal at the end. It's that is the process of the goal itself unfolding. And an authentic goal is something that inspires us and pulls us forward, but is adaptable, is amendable. It evolves. It evolves with us. That's the thing. See, an ideal on a pedestal is static. Because we project all of our wish fulfillment onto it, it stays stuck in this kind of state. Whereas the kind of goal that I'm talking about now, it's sometimes I think it's even like an intuition, but there's something within us that feels inspired, that feels activated, and then a vision is created to try to make sense of that, to try to make that concrete, so that we can then do something actionable. But the whole time that that's happening, what's really happening is that in a way we're more clearly defining what that inspiration is, and we're maturing and evolving in the process, and it's refining, and you could say even evolving with us, so that it's the whole time it was never the case that it was something outside us that we were trying to reach. It was actually something within us expressing itself. And what that is life happening. But we have to let go of this idea that the vision that we have is exactly what it's supposed to be, that it's static. Because as soon as we start doing that, and it becomes our receptacle for our projections, then it starts to devolve into this immature ideal that we can never reach, and that's always outside of us. That's the thing. Is it outside of us, or is it within us just wanting expression? That's the difference. And when we're coming from a place when it's life expressing through us, that means that we're in alignment, in open relationship to life. We're not in resistance. We're not in opposition to it. And part of this as well is part of that unfoldment includes what is happening right now. And in order to evolve, to, you could say, broaden our ability to express this, we have to you could say totally allow what's happening. If we have a limited view on that only what I like should be happening, then that's automatically gonna cut us off from life, from the broadness of life, from the broadness of what's happening. We're going to compartmentalize. There's an incompleteness with that. But if there is just a total allowance of what's happening, including the discomfort, that gives permission for everything to flow through. And we don't have to have a solution necessarily to, like, I feel this discomfort, I need to do something about it. Because again, that quickly falls into like finding a coping mechanism. And what can happen is we just get cleverer and fancier with our coping mechanisms. You know, we might start out with things that are considered taboo, or we might do things that are considered like hedonistic, but we can get fancier with that and start having coping mechanisms that are like, oh, I feel uncomfortable, I need to visualize and create a positive state. I feel bad, so I'm going to visualize feeling good. And it sounds nice, and it sounds like a potentially smart thing to do, but what it is, it's just another coping mechanism, and it's still running away from the feeling, and it's still fundamentally reinforcing this paradigm that there's incompleteness. Not to say that there isn't any kind of usefulness to accessing those states. It's just, again, this is about relationship. Like I was saying earlier, it's not inherently bad to hook up or enjoy a meal. It's just, how do we relate to it? How are we relating to visualization and accessing resourceful states? Is it happening as a reflex when we feel bad? Or is it happening more as like an exploration or curiosity? Is it coming from a place of openness, or is it coming from a place of fear and contraction? So I think that makes a big difference. But it's so tempting. It's incredibly tempting. I get it. I feel it. I've been wanting to go back to that place today of hooking up. and I've been faced in a very interesting way with some scenarios around I'll just say getting real with myself about what I actually value. And do I really value just the quick hookup? Or do I really value getting to know someone and having a relationship? And the hookup can be fun. I'm not saying that's bad, but I've had my share of it. You know, I know what to expect of it. Generally, it's not. In a way, it's new each time if it's with a different person, but in a way, it doesn't go any deeper. It doesn't. It In a way, it just isn't new. It's also just kind of the same old, same old. It's not going anywhere. It's still in the limbo state. It's not going anywhere. It's a hamster wheel. Whereas going into a relationship again feels a bit scary, but I know it's also something new. I know it goes somewhere. It's I guess I have to ask that question a bit more. Goes where? But we'll just say it goes into the unknown. It goes to a place that I haven't really been before. I've often thought that hooking up with strangers is kind of an adventure each time. You never know what the person's going to be like, and in a way, each experience is kind of different. So it, in some ways, kind of meets that risk-taking, adventurousness spirit that I have. It's one of the few outlets that it gets to express itself in, and I know I need more outlets for that. But also, a relationship, in a real sense, is actually it would be more of an adventure for me, because it would be more of what I don't know. It would be more of what I can't expect. There's more nuance. There's more things to navigate. There's more time for new experiences to arise in that. Yeah, so it would actually be more of an adventure overall. So yeah, the old ways are comfortable. They sure are. that's this crossroads I'm at. I'm seeing the pointlessness of chasing the carrot. I'm seeing the pointlessness of, you could say, being stuck in pointlessness and just coping. And I want to see what this third option is like. And I think with that, I also have to let go of knowing. I have to let go of holding to an outcome and thinking that I'm going to know how to go about this. That I can just read enough books or have enough information or figure things out ahead of time to prepare myself. And it doesn't work like that. Doesn't mean I can't do some of that, but it's, again, going back to the relationship with things, yeah. And for me, if I was to just try to just mentally have all the answers, it would be out of fear. I'm speaking very generally, So I'm curious, what is this third way like? What's it like to live there? Yeah, I don't know if I have anything else to say tonight. I think that sums it up. I think that's a good conclusion. All right, thanks for listening, and yeah, if you like this content, feel free to subscribe and or comment and or like. If you have any things you would like me to talk about, please let me know. And if you are someone who feels like you could use some extra support, I am a coach and hypnotherapist and peer mentor. So, yeah, reach out to me. More than happy to work with people, work with different financial situations. Can do some pro bono work and sliding scale if you need that. But yeah, reach out to me, and thanks again. Appreciate it.